Hello, Curiosities! My name is Kiri Callaghan, and you're watching Kiriosity, the vlog where we happily tumble down the rabbit hole of research to explore the world around us. So over the past couple of years, there's been a lot of talk about the state of the economy. But unless you majored in economics, the word alone is probably enough to put you to sleep. But it's still really important to know. But recently I've noticed how much the gaming community actually mirrors those economic principles we see every day. So I figured, if I can use a game such as Destiny as an example of basic economic principles in gaming, then it'll be easier to remember and apply in real life. First, as with all things, people make choices. In economics, what this means is people make decisions that maximize their own benefit and minimize basically any negative impact they might receive. This is also related to scarcity, the idea that there is a limit amount of a given resource and that people will do what they can to maximize the amount of that resource that they will receive. In the gaming world, resources seem fairly unlimited. For Destiny players, there are spirit blooms, spin metal leaves, and relic iron aplenty for any player who chooses to take the time to search them out. Here's where the scarcity comes in. Originally, you could just farm to your heart's content and turn in the resources for marks, which you could then use to purchase higher level armor and weapons. Now, however, after that Telltale update, the number of ways that players can earn those marks towards leveling up has become more scarce. So rather than having a potentially unlimited, albeit time-consuming, method of earning these marks, players must now choose from an abbreviated list. Economic principle number 2. All choices involve cost. In Destiny, you need to decide how to best spend your time. Perhaps you are particularly good at the Crucible, and your PvP scores get you a bajillion marks a week that you can use for better gear and leveling up. It would then stand to reason that you would probably spend most of your time doing that rather than going on patrol missions. In this example, you are choosing to play PvP at the cost of potential marks you might have earned doing other activities. After all, that's how you maximize your utility. Yeah, that's right. I threw some economics jargon in there. Economic principle number 3. People respond to incentives. See, economics is actually pretty straightforward. You offer a reward, and people are more likely to do what you want them to. Take, for example, the daily bounties in Destiny. How many people would, on a whim, without any other incentive, just go to the moon to do 6 patrol missions in a day? Probably not a lot. However, if you add an additional incentive, such as when you complete the bounty and turn it back in at the tower, everyone seems to do it. Likewise, if there is a disincentive to do something, more people are likely to avoid it. This is equivalent to discouraging people from participating in a strike that is above their character level. It's going to take them more time that they could be using towards other activities and getting more marks, and it's going to be a lot harder to complete. Principle number 4? Economic systems influence choices and incentives. How many of you out there have tried farming for materials that you could turn in a chunk at a time? Now, how many of you still do that now that you can't turn in those materials for anything? Yeah, that's what I thought. See, now that there's no economic benefit to farming, and also you can just save time and buy the materials in the tower, no one really does it anymore. By changing the economics of the game, Bungie has changed the choices and incentives available to the players. Principle number 5. Voluntary trade creates wealth. This is a really interesting point, especially given that there is no trade in Destiny, unless within a very restrictive system in the tower where you can only trade certain items in currency for very specific other items in currencies, sometimes and only on certain days of the week. That would make Ferengis weep. If you tried to create this system anywhere in the US, you would be laughed out of your business consultant's office. But in Destiny, which is enclosed, meaning it's not a free market, you can't shop around to find better deals elsewhere, this system still sort of functions. Lots of bunny ears. Maybe you have a friend who has a really exotic weapon that you want, or maybe you never seem to have enough marks when Xur makes his appearance at the end of a week for 48 hours only. If the market system was set up in Destiny so that people could shop around for the best deal, both parties would benefit. Granted, there is nothing to say that some douche waffle wouldn't take advantage of this system and make that exotic weapon at some absurd price, which you've probably seen this trend in the market section of pretty much any MMO. There's also those people who would buy all up of one item so that they could be the only person selling it and market at an absurdly high price. That's called a monopoly, by the way. However, in principle at least, voluntary trade creates wealth. In Destiny, where you can still earn or find those items rather than having to buy or trade them, it allows the system to be more beneficial than detrimental to players. Okay, last principle, I promise. Our choices now affect the future. Ooh. While this is a principle of economics, it's pretty easy to see the effect of our actions elsewhere in life, right? In Destiny, the way I see this playing out is a few subtle and not so subtle ways. Players that were with Destiny from the beginning might have been able to take advantage of bugs or methods of earning marks that aren't available now. This could be compared to how people on Wall Street might have taken advantage of different rules and regulations to amass their fortunes before the government came in and said, yeah, stop that. Thus limiting those unfair opportunities to make it more fair for those people who weren't able to get in on the ground floor. To use another example, players that are at a higher level receive larger incentives. This will inevitably create an inequality in the system. Those players at higher levels can more easily obtain resources, but new players who are now having to navigate a more restrictive system, no bugs, no exploits, no farming, frankly, they're going to have less opportunity to succeed. Now, some might say you can look at it this way. You can pull yourself up by your bootstraps and use this as an incentive to work harder as a new player in Destiny. After all, if you level up your character, you can eventually get those bigger rewards. But on the other hand, new players will have to work much harder than that first group did to get to that level. And by the time they reach that higher level, those first group of players will still have a significant edge. After all, it's not like they were sitting idle while those players were doing work. They're not just sipping their mimosas, watching from afar and going, good show, old man. So now we have a system where players who started from the beginning will always have the upper hand because they'll always be able to access that better gear and better rewards first, while new players struggle to catch up. Why does this sound familiar? It's almost like this parallels something in real life. Long story short, by limiting the ways in which players can progress and earn those larger rewards, you're essentially limiting the kinds of players that will be playing your game. I mean, that's great if you're looking to cater to a smaller demographic. Maybe that's what will be really good for Bungie. And I'm not being sarcastic. It's much easier to cater to a group of gamers who all have similar playstyles and objectives. However, if this game wants to have something to offer to everyone, they're going to need to diversify their market, so to speak. They're going to need to make multiple routes to get to your goal, or dare I say, fulfill your destiny? So, bearing all this in mind, and I know it's a lot to take in, we should be able to easier identify the parallels in the outside world. And if we understand the principles of economics, we can better work together to create a more fair and balanced system. What are some economic parallels that you've noticed, whether in another game or AFK? A giant thank you to my friend Gypsy Danger B, aka Bethany Robinson, for helping me make this a digestible subject. As always, leave your thoughts and theories in the comments below. I love to hear them all. And don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you all for Grab Bag Friday, and until next Wednesday, stay curious.